it's certain Rishi Sunak will face some sort of challenge in the coming months, warning that the party is just utterly despondent. Discussions have already been taking place about the Prime Minister's successor, according to the Daily Mail. It says that MPs on the right of the Conservative Party have held secret talks with moderates about uniting behind Penny Mordaunt. A source tells the Daily Telegraph that she is now seen as the most likely person to stem the losses. The government's former advisor on equality tells the Times that the Church of England made a political decision in starting a fund to help repair damage caused by its historic links to slavery. Lord Sewell says the Church is doing it for show, saying it's rules. Independent reads the story that the MP Abbott was given the chance to regain Labour win, but refused because she would have to have undergone anti-Semitism training. The Shadow Minister tells the paper that that is why this has been going on for 10 months, as Abbott says key aspects are wrong. And the Telegraph reports that the Veterans Affairs Minister faces the threat of prison for refusing to identify the people who raised concerns about the alleged killing of Afghans by British soldiers. It says Johnny Mercer believes the whistleblowers are being protected. A look at some of us at the news newspapers brings the time to 6 minutes past 6. Time now to go off to Pembrokeshire for ramblings with Claire Walden.
It's a wild and windy winter's day, perfect for ravens, and I'm watching two of them suspended, hovering above the edge of land, and I have come right to the edge, to the Pembrokeshire coast, to St David's. The tide is coming in and the white horse is stretching out for, gosh, probably 100 metres into the sea. In the summertime, this would be packed with surfers. The car park wouldn't have a space to be seen, but because it's winter time, there's barely a soul to be seen. But up ahead, dressed in bright colours, wearing a red jacket and a blue bobble hat and a lovely warm duffel coat over a bright blue jumper, are the two people who I'm going to walk with today. Jackie Morris, you may well have heard of or seen her work, most famously The Lost Words with Robert Crunch. She did all the amazing illustrations for that book. And also Tamsin Abbott, and Tamsin is a glass worker. She does most extraordinary stained glass artwork. And they walk together, and when they walk, ideas form.
Watching the ravens, because they're doing that thing where they, this time of year, they're mating out and nesting, and they do this thing where they fold back their wings and they flip and fly upside down, and it's just joyous. It's getting proper feeling just flying off from the land over the waves like that. It's so rough to us, but they're just playing it.
The light in the sky today is grey, silvery. The slight drizzle that was here earlier on has long since blown away. And I know that's Ramsey Island, the double camel hump.
Yeah.
What are do all the little islands have names as well?
The only name I know for that is the Horse Rocks, and that low tide is much more out the water. The rocks between are the Bishops and Parks. So this is the North Bishop, and the lighthouse is on the South Bishop. You can just see the glint of the lighthouse there.
But also, look, over the left hand of Ramsey Island, you see that spot of light that's just appeared.
I love it here. I spend a long time just looking at the sea, the colours of the sea, because like today, although you would think grey, it has that glass green about it as well.
Also, I love looking down onto the beach here. The reflections of these gulls have come in and they're starting a little dance or fight, hard to tell which. But you watch the reflections on the wet sand as they fly overhead, and there's the secondary dance going on below. Oh, it's really beautiful.
I quite like it.
Yeah.
I only came for the weekend.
Did you? To St David's, and then did you think traffic was too bad to get home?
No, so I came for the weekend 32 years ago, and I went shopping and bought a house. Decided that I was going to stay here. It was quite nice. That is kind of how it happened, actually. But I just thought I didn't want a holiday home. I wanted to live and work here and bring up my kids here. So I did. Lucky. These horses are goodness gracious. I think they're National Trust ponies and they use them to manage the pasture.
And this is a National Trust land.
It is now, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that was another thing. To move to a national park, I felt like I was moving to a place that would be protected and preserved, and it wouldn't change that much in my lifetime. It has, because a lot of the houses that we lived in have been sold on to second homeowners, and it's not even now people renting the places out, it's people who just have a spare to rent a house. So, in a way, it hollows out the community, and you end up losing your schools and your post office and your hospital. It's very destructive. I don't think people realise how destructive. I don't know how to change that, other than I think as a species we're hardwired to learn through story. So we have to change the narrative and make it socially unacceptable to have an empty house when it's another place of rural poverty, like Cornwall, and it's a story that needs to be told.
I want to be very, very careful on cutting out on this walk because it is only a metre to the left. Is the sheer drop down into the sea. There's a wire fence to our right, and it is sprinkled with the remnants of various bits of wool from the sheep. And the field is scattered with rocks, and all around you've got that amazing sort of clash between the sea and the black rock. And it really does feel like not just the edge of Wales, the edge of the UK, but the edge of the world. When did you first become friends with Jack?
I was trying to remember, I think it was probably about 13, 14 years ago, and we talked about me creating a wall of glass. It wasn't intended to be quite such a wall as it became. It was really just one or two pieces that were in her garden fence, and we came on a walk. So that was our first proper thing, was walking out on these different paths, and it was as if she'd conjured all these creatures, seals, peregrines, foxes, just everything that we've been talking about, all the things that inspired us. And walking was a big thing, but until recently it had become something that we weren't able to do so much of together.
Why was that?
Well, I think Jackie needs to explain that really. Why the walking became less of a thing that we were able to do together.
Oh, yeah. Should we finish walking down the hill and talk about it and put it there? Is that okay? Yeah. I mean, this is kind of more where we'll struggle a bit. Going down. Uphill is easier. Downhill is a bit harder, but at least I can do it. That's beautiful. This is such a lovely stream, this, that it just flows down from this valley behind Carthardy and down into Port Melbourne. I love this.
So Tamsin was telling me that your walks together became more problematic.
Yeah.
She said you had to explain.
Yeah, well, I remember walking over the hill one day and loving the ease of movement and just thinking, oh, it won't always be like this. And then I started to develop arthritis, no cartilage in my knee, and I didn't know that at the time, but eventually found it out. And the more I wasn't walking, the more miserable I was becoming. The more miserable I was becoming, the more I was kind of comfort feeding myself. So very good friend of mine, Anna, she said, look, you know, I've had enough of this, you're going to come. So I kept going to the hospital to see NHS people who just said, you're not old enough to have a knee replacement.
How old were you?
I was 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60.
And to be in a lot of pain.
In a lot of
And
pain.
putting yourself in a different health risk
In a
category
very,
because
exactly, and also mental health wise plummeting because I couldn't do this thing that I love. It was breaking my heart. So Anna said, right, you're going to go and see a specialist. I'd been lucky, I guess, because Lost Wheels, which I'd illustrated, had done really well. So for the first time in my working life, I didn't have a thing called an overdraft. I had money in the bank. And I went to see a specialist, and he said, well, yeah, you're quite young, but I can see that it's really impacting your life. I'm going to say this thing to you, which you're not going to like. You need to lose weight. So come back in 4 months' time, and I'll book you in. The only way that I could do it was to make a project of myself. And Anna had done a thing called the blood sugar diet. So I followed this, and I wrote down the food that I ate in the day, took a photograph of the page and sent it to her. She was so supportive, it was absolutely brilliant. And after 61 years, I learned how to eat properly. So many things changed. Within 2 weeks, I felt like my brain had been unwrapped from a duvet of sugar. My clarity of senses was incredible. Vision, smell, just amazing. And I realised it wasn't just the knee that was making it really difficult for me to walk, because the more weight I lost, the easier I found it to walk uphill. It was like getting my life back. So I hadn't walked to St David's Head for at least 9 years, and to stand on the beach and see it and not be able to get there, you know, this place that I love, like it's my blood and bone, and now I can. It's just wonderful.
And did the specialist say when you went back?
Didn't recognise me.
But did you still need? And did you almost not need the knee replacement?
No, because you can't grow your cartilage back. He said there's a possibility that I will have to have a full replacement, but if I can get my weight down a bit more, the less weight I carry, the better.
How much weight did you lose in total?
So far, it's about 4.5 stone, which is the weight of a small child. Child, actually. It's quite nice not to have to carry that around with me.
You're listening to Ramblings on Radio 4 and BBC Sounds. I'm walking with Jackie Morris and also Townsend Abbott. They are both of them artists, creators, writers, and they're collaborating together on an amazing project to tell folk stories.
Yes, so it's called Wild Folk. We had thought about doing a book before, but we were at a self-made artist retreat down on Exmoor, and Jackie's publisher, John Mitchinson of Unbound, was there, and we were talking about and he said, well, we really should do a book with you making illustrations in colour with stained glass, because there is a kind of penchant at the moment for lino cuts and wood engraving, which are monochrome, so it would make a nice change. John said, but who could we get? So he was thinking of folk tales, traditional stories. Who could we get to do? And Jackie was standing behind me. Me. That, I'll write those. And it took a little bit of persuading, didn't it, Jackie? Yes. And within a few hours, really, we had a meeting. We came up with a structure of 7 tales, some of which would be new stories, some of which would be based on traditional tales. And it's been very much a process, not that Jackie's written stories, and then I just illustrate them, but sort of writes, knowing what makes art sing, and I might do some illustrations before she's finished writing, and then that will influence a little bit what she writes, or we'll discuss everything together. So it's very much a joint project. I mean, she's a fantastic writer, writes beautifully, poetically, and also leaves enough space for me to kind of create my own story as well.
We've paused on the path, and there's a very low hedge to the left, which then covers the rocks beneath it. Over on the other side of the, you can really see the gradation in colour from the jet black at the bottom through to coffee and tea, and eventually on top probably green tea.
Yeah, so the black is it's tar lichen. So it's actually a lichen growing on the rocks.
Is it?
Yeah, and it grows where the salt hits it. So you can see how when there's a storm, how high the waves come up. The surfers do come here sometimes to surf. We used to come here with the kids to play in the evenings, and I used to come down here in the mornings, first thing in the morning. I've written here, part of Wild Folk was written here, and I sat on the stones with my knitting, trying to find the words in between stitches. I mean, that's why walking was so important to me, because there's a process about writing where you drop the words in between your footsteps. You need to get out of the house, you need clarity of thought, and you need that space. And the rhythm of walking is really good for finding words. I usually have a notebook and pen with me, and I don't today. But
We've paused just here because what you
I was
spotted.
looking at some poo, and I've taken a photo of it to send to my friend Nicola Davis, because she's very good. If I send it to her and say, whose poo is this?
Yes.
She will tell me, and it's probably a dog. But
Well, no, I think
it's
there's
weird.
a worm in it. Fox.
Well,
Don't you think there's a worm in it?
I don't know. It's got
Or is that
certain-
bone or a talon?
I mean,
or a
it's-
esophagus?
Yeah. It is. It's weird, but
It looks
Nick,
like spray. Like,
Nick
doesn't it?
knows about stuff. I mean, it might be an otter,
Could
but I
be.
don't think so. But it'd be interesting. Who's always
Definitely-
interesting?
Definitely something that's eaten a bird, because
Yeah.
that's the head of the bird there. What prompted you to work with glass, Tamsin?
Well, it was one of those accidents, really. I mean, I'd always been aware of it in church, as my father was a vicar, but I hadn't sort of been drawn to it especially. But when our second child was a baby, a friend of mine said, "Oh, you're not getting out enough, why don't you come and do this stained glass evening class with me?" And because it's really not a tactile material, it's very much a visual material, I wasn't sure, but then I saw the potential to paint on it and to create images, a bit like, almost like wood engravings they are, and then also how you can then use the light. It's almost like a magic lantern or a magic window into a world once you've created these images. So that's how it began, and 4 years later I thought, I can't afford to keep doing this as a hobby, so I'm either going to have to give it up or take it on more seriously. And at that time I received £1,000 from my grandfather who died, and I bought a kit with it, so I was able to set up at home and start making my own work. And immediately had a little exhibition with Herefordshire Art Week and picked up a couple of galleries through that who wanted to display my work, and it all was sold. It's been like a dream, really.
And most people would be familiar with stained glass, as you say, in church windows.
Yes.
I've seen stained glass as an art installation out in Minsmere, actually, out in the wilds.
Lovely,
sort of-
yes.
yeah. What I have never seen is stained glass illustrations in a book.
That's because it hasn't really been done before.
Right.
So there are photographs of stained glass windows in books, either about buildings or stained glass itself. or sometimes in religious texts they're illustrated with existing stained glass windows, but to actually create stained glass windows for a book, we don't think it's been done. It may be that people write in and say, oh yes it has, which would be interesting to know. So the process of making windows for me is what I normally do. How we actually come to put them in the book is still a little bit of a mystery. So
We've got ideas.
We've got ideas. So I make prints of my glass, and that's when it's photographed on a light box. So it's a very clear image. It works very well with the illumination underneath. But there are other ideas about trying to photograph it in the landscape, maybe to add to the wild folk essence.
Yeah, I think although I'm such a geek that I want to take the seal story to the beach down there and photograph it in the light down there. I don't particularly then want to